It's 4 in the afternoon on Thursday, August 21st, here in Korea. Live from Seoul, I'm Na Hyun-kyung. Our top story this afternoon, with family victims of April's ferry disaster opposing the negotiated deal and the ruling party unwilling to reopen negotiations, the main opposition party's interim chief is finding herself in a sticky position. Our National Assembly correspondent Ji Myung-kil starts us off.
The acting chair, Park Young-sun of the main opposition New Politics Alliance for Democracy, failed to persuade fellow party members and relatives of the Sewol-ho ferry victims to accept the compromised ferry bill that was produced with the ruling Saenuri Party on Tuesday. The interim chief has not been able to win the backing of her own party, and some lawmakers have even distanced themselves after news broke that the families were dissatisfied with the agreement. The ruling party has kept a firm stance, saying further negotiations are out of question, and the opposition party's hardliners have sided with the victims' families who oppose the bill, saying it lacks investigative and prosecutorial powers. The interim chief Park, also in line with the ruling party, made it clear on Wednesday that renegotiations are not an option. Lawmakers from within the main opposition are divided on how to resolve the current crisis. The acting chair faces the prospect of intense backlash from within her own party, and it is feared that the opposition could be hurt more if the party fails to win any concessions from both the ruling party and family members of the ferry accident victims. Left with no choice, interim leader Park has asked President Park Geun-hye to meet one of the victims' fathers, who has been staging a hunger strike for over a month to help break the deadlock. However, the presidential office has distanced itself from the bill, saying the special law on the Sewol-ho ferry incident is a matter that needs bipartisan agreement within parliament and is not an issue President Park can help resolve. Ji Myung-kil, ARIRANG News.
The entire world is appalled, says U.S. President Barack Obama, over the beheading of American journalist James Foley by Islamic State militants. The Pentagon says a secret mission was carried out in Syria earlier this summer aimed at freeing American hostages, including Mr. Foley. Connie Lee reports.
A spokesperson for the Pentagon has revealed that the United States attempted a rescue operation in Syria earlier this summer, not only to free U.S. journalist James Foley, but also other American hostages being held in Syria by Islamic State militants. It was a secret, major rescue operation launched by U.S. Special Forces against the Islamic State. The Pentagon statement on Wednesday said the operation involved air and ground components, but did not succeed because the hostages were not present at the targeted location. This new information came as the U.S. launched a wave of new airstrikes against Islamic State targets in Iraq. On the same day, President Barack Obama, in a televised statement, said the U.S. will be relentless in the fight against the militant group following the brutal murder of Mr. Foley. President Obama, who said he was heartbroken over the incident, said the U.S. will do what's necessary to see that justice is done. He also compared the militant group to cancer, whose spread must be stopped. The president's message came less than a day after the militants released a video of the American journalist being beheaded. The Islamic State is believed to be holding several American hostages, including journalist Steven Sotloff. Connie Lee, ARIRANG News.
In the meantime, the U.S. Navy has unveiled what's called its navigation plan for the next few years, and it says Washington plans to up its fleet presence in the Middle East by increasing the number of ships from 30 to 40 by the year 2019. As for Asia, its policy is in line with the U.S. pivot to Asia. Chief of Naval Operations Admiral Jonathan Greenert has called for an expansion of the U.S. fleet in the Asia-Pacific from 50 to 65 ships over the same period. The document covers fiscal years 2015 through 2019 and serves as a guide to the top Navy officers' budget priorities. A former U.S. high-level official has warned North Korea against pushing the boundaries with its provocations, saying a war would mean the end of the regime. In an interview with South Korea's Yonhap News Agency, former Director of National Intelligence Dennis Blair said the North Korean regime would be wiped out by nuclear weapons if it first attempts a nuclear attack. He said North Korea is well aware of this and knows there's a limit to how far it can go. The former intelligence chief added North Korea will conduct another nuclear test whenever it wants to create a threat in an attempt to extract concessions out of the U.S. and South Korea. Meanwhile, the U.S. Treasury's point man on North Korea sanctions is currently in Seoul for talks with senior diplomats of South Korea. Officials say David Cohen and Seoul's top nuclear envoy Hwang Jun-guk and Lee Kyung-soo, the deputy minister for political affairs, reviewed the current status of economic sanctions against Pyongyang by the international community and discussed ways to work with countries like China on the issue. Cohen is also said to have requested Seoul's cooperation in sanctions against Russia, citing the Ukraine crisis and the recent shooting down of a Malaysian passenger jet. Now, economic indicators coming out from different parts of the world seem to be pointing to a global economic downturn. Geopolitical concerns in a variety of hotspots are adding to apprehensions, making it difficult for the export-driven Korean economy to gain much momentum. Our Song Ji-sun has more.
Latest reports by the Korean government and economic research institutes reveal that most of the world's largest economies are showing significant downside risks that could drag on Korean and emerging economies as well. The Eurozone, which accounts for 17% of the global economy, failed to grow at all in the second quarter from the first quarter. The gain in consumer prices in the Eurozone also marked the lowest level in nearly 5 years, at a mere 0.4%. Both indicators show a typical double-dip phenomenon, meaning the European economy showed weak signs of recovery, then fell back to a slump. Japan's stagnant economy is expected to remain in the doldrums for another few years, with exports not rebounding enough to bolster its economy and domestic spending continuing to shrink. Japan's economy contracted 6.8% in real terms in the second quarter, the lowest level seen since the devastating earthquake and tsunami 3 years ago. Citing officials, Bloomberg reported that Japan's central bank could slash its 2014 growth outlook to less than 1%, with many private economists predicting growth rate of less than 0.5%. The Japanese central bank has already revised down its growth forecast for this year 3 times. The U.S. is the only bright spot, with its GDP logging a 4% growth in the second quarter. But its momentum can largely be affected by the slowing demand from the Eurozone and a widely expected decision by the U.S. Federal Reserve to raise its benchmark interest rate in the coming month. Crises in Ukraine, Iraq, and Gaza also have the potential to derail the global economic recovery. That could spell a tough road ahead for the Korean economy, which relies heavily on exports. Song Ji-sun, ARIRANG News.
But there's apparently one effect that's going strong against the current. The so-called Pope Francis effect may have extended to the Pope-mobile as well. Sales of Kia Motors' Soul model shot up last week after Pope Francis used the compact car to get around during his trip to Korea. The company says an average of 32 cars were sold per day in the country right before the Pope arrived until shortly after he left. That's up 63% compared to the same period last month. Kia forecasts global sales of the Soul model to spike as well in the months to come. Korean battery maker LG Chem has won a deal worth hundreds of millions of dollars from Audi to supply batteries for their plug-in hybrid and micro-hybrid electric vehicles. LG Chem declined to give out details, but did say it expects the deal to boost orders from Audi's parent company Volkswagen in the future. The Korean firm has already secured 20 global customers, including General Motors and Ford, and supplied batteries for 320,000 electric vehicles since it began production in 2009. Mathematics can be a scary subject for some. It was once considered a reserve of the academic world, but Korean researchers are trying to let the future generations know that math theorems are being applied in everyday gadgets and devices. Our Kim Ji-yeon has this next story.
The application of math theorems provides an important foundation for the advancement of modern technology. 3D printers, one of the most promising inventions of the 21st century, are based on a calculus theory known as Fubini's theorem. Introduced by Guido Fubini in the early 20th century, it states that in order to materialize an object with n-level dimensions, one can do so by piling up the matter of n-1 dimensions.
If it wasn't for Fubini's theorem, it would not have been possible to intricately pile layer upon layer to produce a three-dimensional object. The rudimentary alternative is to take a large object and sharpen it, but this method cannot produce the sophisticated designs like those made by 3D printers.
Due to its growing importance, Korea has increasingly tried to find ways to nourish local mathematicians, and has been making significant progress in the field over the past 30 years. Korea ranked first in the International Mathematical Olympiads in 2012 and has maintained a top 7 ranking since. A number of math dissertations from Korea have been published in academic journals overseas, putting it at 11th in the world. However, Park Kyung-ju, professor at Pohang University of Science and Technology, says there's still a long way to go in terms of promoting the quality of research. He's emphasizing the need to create a conducive environment for local mathematicians.
So they tend to do research whose results are kind of predictable, or they know for sure that they can solve. Instead of actually challenging the problems that can actually make impacts. The problem is the whole research infrastructure, including grants opportunities, promotes that mindset.
The winners of this year's Fields Medals, which are among the most prestigious awards in mathematics, underscore the importance of quality education in nurturing young mathematicians so that they can experience and appreciate the beauty of the subject and stay the course. Kim Ji-yeon, ARIRANG News.
A new report released by the Seoul city government shows nearly half of all senior citizens in the capital have their adult children living under the same roof. The majority say their children are unable to afford a place of their own because of financial reasons. Many seniors were also shown to be taking care of their grandchildren. Over 30% of the adult children living with their parents admitted they are incapable of supporting themselves financially.
Bringing you the fresh updates from stories breaking in Korea and abroad. We give you a bigger and better picture of the world. Join Na Hyun-kyung live from Seoul. Every weekday, only on ARIRANG.
The Korean government has confirmed that one Korean national was killed in Wednesday's massive landslide in southern Japan. Foreign Ministry spokesperson No Kwang-il says there were 2 Koreans residing in the affected area in the city of Hiroshima. One died and the other was seriously injured. The spokesperson said Seoul plans to offer aid to the families of the victims, reported to have been a Korean couple in their 70s. In Japan, a month's worth of rain triggered the landslide between late Tuesday and early Wednesday, killing at least 39, including a rescue worker. Foreign Minister Yoon Byung-se expressed Seoul's condolences to his Japanese counterpart Fumio Kishida on Thursday. In the past, language and cultural barriers made Asians hesitate to leave their homelands and move to another Asian country for work and perhaps a better life. But that trend is apparently changing. Our Kim Hyun-bin explains why.
The number of people moving from one Asian country to another has risen dramatically over the last 10 years. According to the UN 2013 International Migration Report, released on Wednesday, roughly 20 million Asians migrated within the continent last year. Many are leaving their homelands in search of work, others because of marriage. As countries in Northeast Asia, like Korea and Japan, suffer from the effect of low birth rates, a labor gap has emerged. It's being filled more and more by cheap labor from South Asia and Southeast Asia. Some 2 million Southeast Asians and South Asians moved to Northeast Asia last year for work or international marriage last year. That's nearly double the total from 2000. And looking at Vietnam alone, over 17,000 Vietnamese migrated to Korea in 2000. By 2013, the figure has soared to 120,000. While Northeast Asia has seen an influx of immigrants, its numbers pale in comparison to West Asia. Some 13.5 million people migrated from South Asia to the west of the continent last year. They're making the move for similar reasons. Middle Eastern countries may be rich in oil, but they also have relatively small populations, requiring them to look outside their borders for hard labor. That's opened the employment door for people from India, Pakistan, and Sri Lanka, who have seized the opportunity. The number of Southeast Asians moving to the Middle East for work has also risen, with the number last year falling about 2.8 million. Kim Hyun-bin, ARIRANG News.
Taking the ice bucket challenge may be the next thing on your bucket list, as videos of celebrities and world leaders tipping ice-cold water over themselves are going viral on the internet, and the challenge has made its way into Korea as well. Our Kwon So-ah tells us what the cause is for.
Charity can be so much fun. The Ice Bucket Challenge is going viral around the world. All you have to do is dump a bucket of ice water over your head or let others do it for you within 24 hours after being nominated, or donate $100 to the ALS Association. The association helps people suffering from amyotrophic lateral sclerosis or Lou Gehrig's disease. Once you have been nominated and drenched yourself, it's your turn to choose 3 other people. And it's the more fun when the most well-known people in the world take the challenge.
To you all who've challenged me, I do not think it's presidential for me to be splashed with ice water, so I'm simply going to write you a check.
Or not.
Yesterday was Bill's birthday, and my gift to Bill is a bucket of cold water.
Now I nominate Ellen, Barack Obama.
The internet is full of clips of people like Tom Cruise, Lady Gaga, and others not only showing their down-to-earth side, but tipping ice-cold water over themselves and donating to a great cause. The challenge has also made its way to Korea. Actor Jo In-sung grabbed the headlines when he nominated a baseball player of the same name. Former pro basketball player Park Seung-il, who has been battling with Lou Gehrig's disease, took the challenge in his own way with snow spray, which touched many people. Although there is some criticism that the challenge makes light of such a serious illness, it has fulfilled its main purpose of raising awareness and tens of millions of dollars. According to the ALS Association, donations have rocketed to $31.5 million in less than a month, compared to the under $2 million raised over the same period last year. Kwon So-ah, ARIRANG News.
French film director Luc Besson is back in the spotlight with his latest movie, Lucy, which will feature stars like Scarlett Johansson, Morgan Freeman, and Korean actor Choi Min-sik. Besson was in Seoul on Wednesday to promote his latest work. Our Shin Se-min was also there.
Manipulating time and controlling people. According to Luc Besson's latest film, Lucy, if humans were able to use 100% of their cerebral cognitive powers, they'd all have such super abilities. The movie stars Scarlett Johansson as a character who accidentally gains superpowers from a brain-enhancing drug and lays revenge on the dealer who sets her up, played by Korea's own Choi Min-sik. Besson's twisted plot was inspired by the old myth that human beings use only 10% of their brain power, an idea that's impacted the director.
As an adventurer, I always challenge and experience all things myself, and I have personally become more picky as an audience member over the age of 50. I've been working to make a solid film that contains both action and a thrilling psychological element, and Lucy is it.
Basong is known worldwide, but this film marks the first Hollywood debut for Chem, and many media outlets have applauded his performance, even saying that he saves the film. While promoting the movie, Che said it was an honor to work with such a renowned director like Basong, adding that he learned a lot from the experience. Already garnering box office earnings of over $130 million worldwide, this psychological action thriller is expected to hit the Korean theaters on September 4th. Shin Se-min, ARIRANG News.
Shifting gears, if you know a little bit about Korean history during the Silla dynasty, you will know Chichi One. He is a revered writer and scholar, and currently there is an exhibition that shows how today's world views this 9th century figure. Our Im Hyun-hee takes us there.
A historical figure from the Silla dynasty, sometimes referred to as the Lone Cloud. Chichi One is regarded as one of Korea's cultural heroes. As a scholar, writer, and spiritual sage, the story of Chichi One is a colorful one, and it's illustrated by the many artists in this exhibition. An exhibition that uses a blend of the traditional and the contemporary to revive this ancient character.
This exhibition features 40 contemporary artists and around 140 various portrayals of Chichi One.
Chichi One was born in the year 857 in a unified Silla dynasty, and at the young age of 12, he was sent to China to study. He soared through the school rankings and even passed the highest of China's civil service exams, later serving as a local government official. He was recognized through China for his scholarly achievements and mastery of words. And upon his return to Korea, he was eager to spark reform in the now crumbling Silla dynasty. But his efforts were futile, so he began wandering the country and eventually retreated into the mountains, where some records claim he built a chair amongst the trees and used history books as pillows. His life is reimagined through these contemporary works of art. Here, a pre-mountain Che is painted in red, juxtaposed against the more disheveled version of Che after years in the forest. It's in his solitude where he composed many poems and meditated on the harmony of Buddhism, Taoism, and Confucianism. But it's the end of his story that has created the most mystery and intrigue. It's said that Che just slipped into the forest and never was seen again.
This piece is by artist Hwang Jae-hung, and it depicts the mystery behind the disappearance of Chichi One. It's said that only 2 shoes were left at the edge of the forest by the Hainsa temple, so some people believe he reached spiritual immortality, but nobody truly knows exactly what happened in the end.
Whether it be a painting or a statue, the various artists here have shown the rippling effects of Che and his teachings, ideas and beliefs that have trickled through over 1,000 years of history. Im Hyun-hee, ARIRANG News.
Good afternoon, I'm Michelle Park here with the latest weather forecast. The heavy rain that was falling in Seoul has now moved over to the northeastern regions, where up to 30 millimeters of rain per hour are pouring down. Now, the heavy rain alert that was in effect for Seoul has now been lifted. Now, however, there are still some heavy rain warnings and advisories in effect in some regions of Gangwon-do Province, Chungcheong-do Province. So for those of you driving, please be extra be careful. Now, for most of the rain from the south has cleared, however, we're in for more rain until tomorrow here in the central region. And Gyeonggi-do Province of up to 70 millimeters, while up to 120 more is expected in the north. Now, along with this rainy day and cloud covers, we can expect somewhat of cool temperatures. Now, however, the high level of humidity is making things a bit uncomfortable. Now going over to our temperature readings. Seoul will top out at 24 this afternoon. Meanwhile, the southern cities such as Gwangju and Busan will top out both at 27 degrees. And moving over to other regions, Jeju Island tops over to 27 as well. Dokdo hits 23, while Mankungang tops out at 22. Well, that's all for Korea. Now here's a look at the weather conditions around the world.
And that's all we have for you now. Our next newscast is at 6 p.m. Korea time. I'll see you then.